Howdy, welcome to my channel. I am so honored to be participating in the Papercrafters Unite Against Racism Hop. The goal of this hop is to come together to stand behind our crafty sisters and brothers of color, not just in the art industry, but also to show our support in the never-ending fight for equality all over the world. Today I will be coloring in this digital image by The Greeting Farm. It's called We Stand Together. And to color this image in, I will be using alcohol markers as well as some colored pencils. So let's begin. Now, you may not know this about me, but I am of Asian descent and Caucasian descent, so I'm an Asian American. But not only am I an Asian American, I am also a member of a family that is very diverse. Two of my cousins have raised children that are of African American descent, and my niece and nephew are of Hispanic descent and Asian descent, and as well as Caucasian descent. When I was in high school, I took a class that was on the Holocaust. And one of the things I learned from taking that class is that people in power who are corrupt try to attack those who they feel nobody will stand up for. And I have a poem I'd like to share with y'all today that sort of illustrates that point. Now, you could substitute the terms for people in this poem to represent more or less what is going on in the world today. So you could substitute words like communist and socialists for African Americans and Native Americans, as well as people on the LGBTQ spectrum. So the poem I'm going to share with you is First They Came by Pastor Martin Niemöller, and I am sure I didn't get that name correct, but I am still going to read the poem. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out for the Jews because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. I think it's important that at this time we speak out for the African Americans because they're going through a lot right now. It seems like every day you hear another story about an African American person dying while in custody. Now, something else I'd like to say is I don't think that it's all police officers. In fact, when I was a teenager and I was at that prime babysitting age, I babysat for a family. The husband was a police officer and the wife was a Mary Kay lady, and they had children, and I loved babysitting for that family. But my point is that it's not the police in general that are the problem. What is the problem is specific members of the police departments at this time that are misusing their authority. And I don't think that's right of them to do. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And for another thing, I don't know how you feel about the protesters, but my niece and nephew have been out there protesting, and I know they've been doing it because they feel in their conscience that it's the right thing to do. Now, the particular niece and nephew that I'm talking about are Caucasian, but I don't think that is the point. I think the point is that you should let your conscience be heard. You should not let people in power misuse that power to promote their own agendas. As someone whose family does come from the Philippines, they have a democracy, but it's not exactly a democracy like we know of it in the United States. If it was, I don't think when Americans hear about the Philippines, they wouldn't be thinking about Imelda Marcos, whose husband was Ferdinand, and she had more shoes. She's known for her shoes. She had more shoes than anybody. When the country that he ran is a third world country. I don't think you should be focusing on acquiring riches to make your life better when you're running a third world country like that. I think you should be focused on helping to improve your country. And I don't know if you've noticed while I'm coloring with alcohol marker, they're all a mixture of alcohol markers. I think that's sort of a metaphor for what's going on in the world. We should strive to get along and be harmonious and work with one another, rather than fight with one another over petty things. And I also don't think we should be out there looting, because that doesn't do anything but hurt the small business owner that's out there. I know you guys are noticing that I'm not exactly coloring in the lines right now, but that's okay because I'm going to actually fussy cut these girls out. I also hope you don't mind the way that I'm coloring, because I know I'm turning the paper around to do it, but that's just the way I color. Sorry, but I realized I should probably create some sort of tongue in there, because I'm not gonna color in lipstick, but I could at least create a tongue. And right now I'm just using a ultra fine point Sharpie to color in the rest of the mouth. Now we're going to use a bit of colored pencil for the banner. And when it comes to blending my banner, I like to use baby oil. We still have a Bic marking marker and a Sharpie to use. We're going to use those when we work on the background that these girls are going to go on. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've had a piece of paper. It's just printer paper underneath my coloring, and that's because the alcohol marker does tend to bleed. And I don't want to pick up any colors that weren't intended for this piece. Now that our banner is colored, I'm going to blend that color in using a Fantastics stick and the baby oil. And I just dip the stick into the baby oil to do that. Then I just use the stick like I did with the colored pencils themselves and just sort of color over where the colored pencils were. Then I like to clean the stick off, which is rubbing. It's quite similar to how you would clean off your blender marker if that's what you were going to do. Our blender marker doesn't need cleaning, but basically you would just scribble till you got rid of the color that was on it. Now the next thing we're going to do is fussy cut the girls out. Once we're done fussy cutting these girls out, we're going to take our marker and run it over the edge of where the cutting happened for our girls, and that way it looks better when you're placing it onto a card. When it comes to fussy cutting, I like to use these Fisker scissors because they have a strong grip and they also make it easier to make turns with your paper, because that's just how I like to cut. These scissors are also good if you have arthritis in your hands or any hand problems. I'm going to go back over this a bit. Now I'm not using any different marker colors than I used earlier. I'm just trying to fix this line over here. There, I kind of like that a little better. So now that I'm done fussy cutting, we're going to take our marker and we're going to color along this white edge, but I don't take my marker and do it this way. What I like to do is turn my image over and sort of trace it with my marker. That way my hand is less likely to slip onto the front of the card, onto the front of the image and mess it up. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a background for these girls to hang out in. So I'm going to score this cardstock piece. I like to use my score pal for that. You could use a score buddy, or I know EK Success makes a good tool for scoring as well. And then I like to take a Teflon bone folder rather than the bone folder that comes with the score pal, because this bone folder is more likely to cause those shiny bits that you see sometimes on a card. So we've got our card base and our card front and our girls. Now, to create the background that they're gonna have, I like to use a stencil for that. And when I use a stencil, I like to use my Make Art Station. And my stencil is actually homemade. I used this edge die cut. It's from an old Stampin' Up set of dies. I like to take my Make Art Station when I use my stencils. And for this cloud background that we're going to create, I like to use the stencil and a sponge, and we're going to use Aquamarine ink by Ranger. Then we're just going to wipe our sponge over the ink pad, and I like to just make sure that it's secure by using the other two magnets that come on the Make Art Station. And then I just like to kind of use the sponge around the edge of the stencil by just kind of doing a swirly swiping motion on it. As you can see, I don't tend to need to go back into the ink pad, but we're keeping it close by so that in case I do need to go back into it, we can. And then that just creates your pretty little cloudy background. So we're going to pop these girls up using foam tape. And we've still got this little Sharpie pin out because I'm going to draw some birds in the background. I like to keep my T-square handy so I can make sure that the girls are centered correctly rather than having them be a little catawampus. And I like to use the 3M foam tape because it's not very thick, but it does have a really strong hold. We're going to make sure that those dreads are secure, so we're going to trim this piece just a little bit skinnier. So now we're going to take our girls and make sure they're nice and centered on the card. I hope you guys are enjoying the hop. I know there are a lot of participants for this, because a lot of us feel like we should stand up and have our voices heard so that those who can no longer speak for themselves can have representation. Now we're going to use our Sharpie and sort of make a curved V or a check mark. This creates the illusion of birds flying in the background. And I sort of like to do them in a V formation. That's because if you notice birds flying, they like to fly in a pack. So now we need to place our card front onto our card. When I do that, I like to use a stamping platform. I like to put the card base right at the corner, and that way when I line it up, it will be smooth, and doing this gives me less of a chance of mounting the card front wonky. There you go. And I'd like you all to remember that we do stand together, or we should stand together. I hope you enjoy this hop. The link to the next person is in the description box below. If you like what you saw, please click the like button. If you would like to see further videos from me, please click the subscribe button. And I always love to receive comments. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, stay crafty. Have a great day. Bye.